Hello and welcome to another episode of Smash JT. In this episode, I'm excited to bring you guys an exclusive interview with Colin, who's the founder of Spellbind Studios and the former software engineer for companies like EA and Blizzard. Super fun conversation, and I learned a ton from talking about the inner workings of what goes into game design. I really hope you guys enjoy it, and a special thank you to my buddy Jason that got this hooked up. Jason and I worked together when we were at Sony Online testing games. Enjoy the video, guys! Can you give the viewers a brief history of your video game industry experience, where you got your start, where you are now, and why? And I did a little bit of research on you. Like, I know you started on Nox, and you worked on Diablo III and Command & Conquer, so can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I first started working in the industry while still in college. I got a computer science degree at Colorado State University, Fort Collins, Colorado. I was working on this little role-playing game on my own, which was called Insurrection. It looks very much like Ultima 6 from like way back in the day. And that actually is what I used to, not intentionally, I was just building it for fun, right? But it turns out when you show like a game that you're building to employers in the video game industry, they're like, oh, that's super cool. By the way, it's still something that I really look for today when I'm interviewing people at any of these companies. You know, if somebody comes to me and shows me a whole program they wrote, like I don't care how complicated or good it is, but it's done, and that speaks volumes more than any degree or any of that kind of stuff. But anyway, so I was working on that in school, and this guy named Mike Booth hired me while I was still working there, which was on the project Nox that happened to be in that school hometown, Fort Collins, which is kind of unheard of. There's not really video game companies there. I graduated, and the company was bought and moved to California. That became Virgin Interactive. Became Westwood Studios, which is what Nox was released under. So this is back in 1998.
Was that related to EA at all? I feel like Westwood had something to do with EA.
Yeah, so when I went there, we were Virgin, and then EA bought Westwood Studios and Virgin Northern American Studios, which is what we were, and became Westwood Pacific under the umbrella of Electronic Arts. And so that's how Nox was released. And then, our studio went on to do other things. Red Alert 2 and Command & Conquer Generals was stuff that I worked on. And then I left at the end of that project. While they kept moving the studio around in Southern California. It's still part of EA. I came up north here to the San Francisco Bay Area where I worked on for the dream job. Actually, I wanted to work on Diablo stuff. I'd been playing Diablo for a long time. They were kind of like a competitor to Nox for years. Everybody was like always looking at what they were doing, and I worked on what became Diablo III for a few years. It was super fun. But then they closed Blizzard North down and moved the project back to Southern California, which I didn't really want to go down. And continued to follow some of the Blizzard North guys on Flagship, which was Hellgate London. It was also very much a Diablo kind of style game. It was third person, perspective. Worked on that for a couple years. Did another year at Turbine's new studio after Flagship closed down. But then, global financial Armageddon happened. We had a big recession in the country. Our project didn't go forward, so that wasn't really super fun. So all of us left and went to Gazillion, where we did Marvel Heroes. That was a 4-year project. It's an MMO. It's again another randomly generated Diablo style, sort of game.
Yeah.
This one was from inception to launch, which was a lot of fun. Deciding what kind of technology to use and what servers to build and do everything as a lead programmer there. So that was a whole lot of fun.
That's awesome.
But I was like, after all of these years building stuff, I'm ready to go work on my own thing. So I wanted to, build this game, Rogue Wizards, which is, again, a sort of randomly generated dungeon crawler. I really love these, but, I wanted to do something that was really suitable for the iPad specifically, because that's what I was playing a lot of the time. But it works on, on all mobile stuff. And with this game engine gaining popularity in recent years, somebody like me can actually do this, on their own and kind of do all these different platforms. You can do iOS and Android and PC and Mac and everything, which is really unheard of.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this stuff for about 20 years, and that kind of takes me to where we are today.
Damn, that's awesome.
I had a real job, I like to say. I wasn't worried about fireballs.
Saving the world.
Right.
One of the things I thought of before I started talking to you was, what made you want to step down as a lead programmer on Marvel Heroes to form your own development studio? Like, what was the aha moment in your life where you're like, okay, I've had enough of doing this for someone else. Now I'm ready to start my own development company?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question because, deciding to, leave a nice stable job and go take a big risk on something, makes no sense whatsoever, especially in video game industry, right? It's all hit and miss. But, it's I got into this industry because I love playing video games. I love making this stuff, it's just it's what I've done my entire life. And when you work on these big projects, it's great because you get to do all of this, you got all these artists and all these resources and designers, and you can make these big, cool worlds. But as the team gets bigger, it gets harder and harder for your voice to get heard. Just so many moving parts, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to get back what it was like when I first got into the industry, when I was working on Nox. That was a team of literally just 3 or 4 programmers,
wow,
and art that was contracted out. So I wanted to get back to that again because I was getting a little burnt out, working on these big teams and stuff, and see if I could capture some of that magic, that I remembered from the past. And yeah, you totally can. Making, all the parts of the game, that's what I really enjoy doing. I don't like being siloed into just one particular area. However interesting that area might be, I really have all these design ideas, these art ideas, codes ideas, it all goes together. That's what's great about, these games. It works on so many different levels. It's super cool.
So being a lead programmer and seeing all the different aspects of a game being developed is probably what manifested in your own life as far as I need to be able to do this on my own, right?
I've always been a kind of programmer who looks at the bigger sort of global vision of the project, who has been very involved in, what some of the design directions are, and art to a lesser extent. That people hired me at all of these jobs in the past because, and I know it's the same when I hire other people, I want somebody to be involved and be passionate about it, because everybody gets into this industry because they love games. Not because they love money, because they love games. By its nature, it sort of attracts, people who like looking at the whole picture. And if you can do that and you really like doing it, then I think it just makes sense that as you go along that you try to work on your own projects, and see what they can do, That's
awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just me personally, I was, I don't know how much Jason told you about me, but I met him when I was a game tester, and I believe at the time he was a QA lead on a different team, but I did know of him, and we kind of interacted when our projects overlapped from time to time. And I definitely saw that when I was at Sony, where it's you see people getting put into these niche areas, and it's they want more. Everyone always wants more than what they're doing, which is a good thing, because otherwise they wouldn't be very successful.
When the teams get so big, it gets really hard to do that. I mean, you just cannot pay attention to everything when you're building this big, expansive game, and it's got 50 or 100 people on it. It's just too much.
EverQuest comes to mind. Out of all the game genres out there, how did you come up with the dungeon crawling genre and your own game? Because how do you start from scratch, starting your own studio, and say, okay, I'm picking this random game, throwing it at a dartboard, and this is the direction I'm going? Because once you start a project, it's you devote your life to it, so you better make the right choice.
I mean, there's a lot of ways in which to pick projects to work on, and it sort of depends on what your goals are, right? So for me, I had an opportunity to leave and work on a project that I really wanted to. And so I picked for Rogue Wizards a game that I wanted to play. It's what I've been interested in my entire life. I've always played these dungeon crawlers. I live and breathe these sort of things. So I wanted to do that. It is not necessarily the most financially, beyond that, it's a turn-based, roguelike. That's even more niche, right? This is not something, that's that I'm going to get rich off of. Oh, maybe.
You never know. It's not just niche, but at this time in the technology era, it's an inundated genre that's niche. Like there's a ton of dungeon crawlers out there.
In fact, there are so many indies like building, roguelike.
Yeah.
Roguelike is really hot right now beyond what we traditionally think of as roguelike, and all these other games are now having, what they call roguelike elements, which just means a lot of randomly generated procedural stuff. But I think that makes sense for indies because as an independent developer, when you're just, a small team or just one person, like when you have a procedurally generated game, the code can create content for you because creating content is very expensive, and if you're just one guy or a small team, like you just can't make a whole lot of it. So I think that's why it's natural to see a lot of procedurally generated games out there from independent developers. And I am no different. I spend some money on art, and I make that art go as far as I possibly can, right?
Right.
Finding a level in a different way. So anyway, that's how I came up with the project because I love this sort of stuff.
Okay.
I would like to do, other kinds of projects too. I haven't, really even thought of like what would be next. That's kind of what I have to think. I'm undecided.
Well, I've been playing it a lot over the past few days after Jason told me about it, and I mean, just full disclosure, and I mean, it's not anything negative by any means, but when I first started playing it, it was a little tough for me to get into it because it's a lot all at once to take on and grasp, especially for someone like me who's more familiar with Final Fantasy Tactics and a more slower paced version instead of like, I haven't really gotten into Diablo as much as I would have liked. I have Diablo, I have Nox, I haven't really played them that much. Like, as you can probably imagine, everyone's backlog this day and age is 10 million games long. Way too many. Which makes it challenging for you as a developer. This isn't even on my list, but to come up with an idea in a game that people are going to want to play, to put in front of their backlog, it must be really challenging, which is probably why you take the approach of, I want to make something I want to play because I don't know if someone else is going to want to play it.
So, I mean, there are companies, and one way to select games to build, when you're a big company, and you most certainly should, because they're trying to build for profit, they want to make more games. Search into the market. It's like, where is there a hole, how much does something like that sort of generate? How big is that audience? And you kind of make all these decisions for that, on which kind of project to do next. You also have a lot of other factors of big companies like that, like who is your staff? What are they into? And so that plays into the things that I have more cared about for this project is like, this is the sort of stuff that I have cared about. Like roguelikes, I wanted to do a turn-based game for mobile specifically, down and not die, and it's not super twitch. And anytime you can just turn it off, put it in your pocket, like it'll just be there when you come back.
Yeah.
It was important because of the mobile aspect. Like I really wanted to do something that was a little different for me.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be weird too, going into something and having like a blank slate, and it can be whatever you want it to be, and it's never been done before because you're the one doing it, which is pretty cool.
It's like this game is not like it hasn't been done before. There are like it is the extension of Rogue. I've tried to streamline it to make it easy for people to play because it is by its very nature like this really kind of hardcore genre. Rogue stems all the way back to the 70s, maybe the 80s. Yeah, I don't know. It's old. But games were really hard back then, right? Like, and so I'm trying to put like what is by its nature like a really difficult kind of game on mobile in front of users. So someone like yourself who doesn't play these sort of things all the time, who's different or used to different games, it's a challenge to sort of figure out how to make that really streamlined and easy. So I've tried to focus as much as I can on eliminating all of the stumbling blocks in there that make it hard. So for a turn-based game, you mentioned Final Fantasy Tactics. Not like I intentionally don't have things like action points. There is no turn order, like even when you have things in your party, like all of that stuff exists like in the code. Like I've had to create it, right? They don't expose that.
It's all background info, yeah.
Yeah. You just have to worry about like, can I go or can I not?
Yep.
Your party's being handled by itself. Is it my turn or is it not? Not how many points do I have to do this? Like everything just costs 1 point, right?
Yep.
You can move one square, you can attack, you can drink a potion, like whatever it is. So the way in which I tried to make it easier for people.
Yep.
Who are not familiar with this genre. The other thing to do is to sort of really concentrate on, the user interface and, the experience, right? Like to make it sort of polished and streamlined and fun to use, that there's sounds on everything. You know, when you're looking at, you're comparing your weapons, that it's easy with these little up and down arrows or whatever.
Yeah.
It's trying to make it, as easy as I can. On the flip side, right? So, I've come from action role-playing games, and I'm trying to do it turn-based. On the flip side, is the Final Fantasy Tactics things, and those are very slow. For me, because I don't really play those sort of things, because I find them complicated.
Right.
So I wanted to make it not like that, and that's actually challenging to communicate to people too, right? So look at it, and it looks similar to a tactics game. It's got some light tactic elements, but it's not a tactic.
This isn't to pat you on the back or anything, but I actually enjoy it. The way it flows a lot better than Final Fantasy Tactics, because the pace is just, you got to keep your pace up with it, as opposed to a chess game and the slow movement of each piece and everything.
I'm glad that comes through, because you never know.
No, it does. It definitely does. And I have a lot of experience. And Final Fantasy Tactics, if you watch, I did a top 10 PlayStation games. It's in my top 10. I can't remember where I put it. It's in the top 3, though. It's awesome. Final Fantasy Tactics, to me, is awesome. So playing this game, not going into it blind, Jason told me about it, and I was like, okay, I don't know anything about this game. And I was like, oh, okay, I get this. It's actually better than what I really liked. And that's the evolution of video games, I guess, in a way. Right?
We're going to get more roguelikes and maybe some action role-playing games. You might like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I did a review on Rogue Legacy, which is one of my favorite. It's so great. And it's because of the fast pace. It works so well, and I love that.
I got a little help from the Rogue Legacy guys. From Rogue Legacy and Star Command and Chasm. I did a Kickstarter in 2014, and I got permission, I got art from them to put their characters in Rogue Wizards as an Easter egg, and it wasn't something that I was able to do in time for launch, but now that I'm kind of done with all this sort of stuff, maybe I can squeeze it in there.
That would be awesome. And that's a good way to cross-market, too, because a lot of people are familiar with Rogue Legacy because it was a roaring success in the indie market. So being able to cross-promote with known characters in an unknown game could only help. I mean, it couldn't hurt.
Yeah, cool. It's indies I'm not, struck out on my own and done stuff before. That's been one thing that's really fun to discover, as I've been working on all of this, is that, there really is this tight-knit indie community that the people will really help each other out. So I've gone to some meetups, and people share all their information. They talk about how games have worked for them, what sort of avenues of marketing do work or hasn't worked, how to do some code problems, whatever. Everyone's really welcoming, because surviving in this industry is difficult,
to say the least.
It is hard work, and making money on them is easier, and so everybody wants everybody else to succeed. And I have been just sort of floored how I can just go to some website, that has some game on it, right? Legacy, for instance, I literally did this, go to their website and just send them an email saying hey, I'm doing a Kickstarter, I want to do this thing, and I like your stuff, and and I got responses back, and that's super cool, right?
Is one of them, what's his name, Ken? I'm trying to think of their name. They're brothers.
I don't know, I have to go look them up.
Oh, not to put you on the spot, but I know they're brothers. I did research on it, and they're two brothers that do it, and yeah, that's so cool. That's one thing that I've noticed too, doing my YouTube channel, is just reaching out to directly to the developers, especially the indies.
Here's the cool thing. It also applies to the big guys. I'm an old school role-playing game. I like the Ultimate series, which is what turned me on to role-playing games back in the played Ultimate 3, and I've gone through all of them since then, right? So I'm running this Kickstarter, and I'm you get a little bold, which is cool when you're doing your own business, right? I send emails out to wherever, because what's the worst thing?
What do you got to lose, right?
Nobody answers me. So, for his current company, there was some email for, I don't even know what, some PR thing or whatever. I just wrote them, I'm doing this thing, can you send this to Richard? And, they did, and he wrote me back and backed the Kickstarter, and, did a tweet for everything, and,
wow.
In my view, one of the bigger guys, at least of, my day,
right.
He's making games today, and, it's totally cool, and, help me out. What more can I ask?
Well, sometimes people have to realize, too, and this is totally off topic, but people have to realize that everyone started from nowhere. So some people, even if they're in big positions, a little guy knocking on your door being like, hey, I'm looking to do this. It's similar to how you got started. Maybe that's a soft spot for some people where they're like, Yeah, I remember it was tough for me, and I definitely want to help you out because that's exactly what I had, the challenges I faced. So
Yeah, it all matters. I mean, that's how the industry moves forward, right?
exactly.
We love what we're doing, and we, of course, we want to encourage other people to do it. If I can inspire some people who have played some of the games that I have worked on to create their own thing, whatever that is, whether they want to create art, they want to create music, or make games, whatever. Like, I mean, what more can I ask? That's what I want to do. I really want to inspire passion among people. Like, this is passionate for me, so if that inspires other people, like, that is awesome.
You know, you can always tell someone's passionate about something just in how they talk. They don't even have to say anything. You could be talking about the color of the sky for all I care, but your passion is just like, I just love this because it's just my favorite thing. It's just, that's so cool, man. You can definitely tell it's your passion.
We should all, like, strive to find that thing.
And I mean, props to you, man, because it's, like you said, it's not easy leaving somewhat comfortable and stable. I always say somewhat because in the game industry, nothing's stable.
Game, yeah, but unstable, but yeah, you're right. Thank you.
I researched this game, and it's on Steam. It's $14.99, and I'm sure there are sales and stuff just like everything else. And on iOS, it's free, but they're like, you can click to get your daily coins and your gems to play the ads and stuff. What goes into the decision of how to price a game and the decision of making it free to play on one platform but cost money on another platform? Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's super interesting, and it's not something that I planned. It's something that I made up as I went, and I still don't know how to do it properly or right or whatever, and I'm still making it up as I go.
Does anybody?
We all just make it up as we go. When I started the game, I mean, I come from a place where I'm just used to paying, premium money for games. I would buy, growing up, games for $50 or $60, in the box, and that price has gotten less and less as they become smaller, more independent things I'm interested in. But still, am very familiar with that experience. That is what I wanted. That's what I set out to do from the beginning, and I did on Steam. I knew I wanted to do both desktop and mobile. I started working on mobile, but what I decided to do along the way is I wanted to release the desktop version first. I think because desktop is just naturally where all of my gaming sort of roots come from. And desktop players, I think, are more interactive necessarily than mobile players and want to help give feedback and make all that sort of stuff. So I think that's a better place to start. So I did, and I was hoping, like, hey, if I put it out there and it does really well, then we can just do the same thing on mobile and see if that works. As I put it out there, and it did okay, but it was not quite enough. Like that strategy didn't seem like it was going to work on mobile. Sort of what everybody's telling me, because like mobile is all about free to play. It's been like that for a number of years, and so although it's designed to be a premium game, it didn't seem like it would make financial sense to sort of like also do that on mobile because it's even harder to get discovered there. So I wrestled with it for a really, really long time, trying to figure out, like, well, do I want to make it free to play? I don't want to be one of those, money grubbing like free to play games, that have all these stamina mechanics and everything. Because I hate all that.
Yeah, that ruins the experience.
Yeah, it's like I want it to be worth, people's time, and it's designed to not, infinitely extract money from you. A lot of free to play stuff is, so it's like, how do I resolve this? Like, I had no idea. I iterated on it, and finally came upon. I was playing a bunch of mobile games, and one of the mobile games I keep going back to is Jetpack Joyride. It's this stupid little like endless runner. It's really fun. You get these coins, and you upgrade all this sort of stuff. And I bought the coin builder in there, and I'm like, this is a purchase that I totally respect. It's a permanent thing, letting me, get my money faster. Like, why don't I put that in and try it? Like, okay, that seems good. If I put it in there, then it becomes the same experience as it is on the desktop. Gems sort of drop at the same rate that you would get, like, your spell points and all that sort of stuff. So upgrade that way. But I wasn't sure if that was going to work, and all these publishers are telling me, like, there's only a small number of people who are going to actually pay that, so you should think about some other strategies in order to do stuff. So I put the gem packs in there for those who want to accelerate it. Like, it doesn't unbalance the game. It's not a pay-to-win thing. There are a lot of players that want to just buy the gems and be done with it and not have to worry about it. So I put it in there for those people. They're certainly not required. There's another area of, opt-in ads that people can watch for those who really don't want to spend any money. I personally don't want to watch ads. I think it's really, boring, and I hate doing it, but there are a lot of people that do. So things in there to see, well, maybe one of them will stick. And the experiment is still running, so we'll see which ones work and which don't. And is after this week, sort of look at all those things and see what made most sense, and try to encourage, where people are, enjoying it the most that way, right?
Yeah, and just from a personal standpoint, playing it, I actually, I went into it with the idea of I can't stand ads and mobile games, and it's just annoying. But I play this game, and the ads are all video game related ads that actually tailor to an area that I care about, which is something that a lot of times games will just be like, go buy Starbucks. I'm like, what? That has nothing to do with what I care about. I actually appreciate the way it's formatted with the ads. But from your perspective, and I mean, you don't have to go into details on this, but the ads can't possibly bring in the kind of money that the purchases bring in.
Yeah, no, so it has been. I only have 1 week of data, right?
Right.
It's not nearly as much as people, buying gem packs, or mainly the gem doubler. That's what most people are buying, which is what I wanted to happen.
Right.
That seems the permanent fair thing, and you get to pay $5 for the game, and I think that's a totally fair price for it, and you don't really spend any more money after that. But, over long term, I don't know. I am not sure. I'm navigating waters that I never have before. So, it's all new to me. But I like how the ads advertise other games. I can't take credit for that. I hooked into Unity ads, which nicely connects stuff together.
But in that, you can take credit for that because you hooked into Unity. That was a good idea to do that.
That's true. I guess that's good, right? It makes a lot of sense. And I will certainly, take out ads, and they will go into other games, and hopefully, people who are playing something that's similar, or, find this game and it's relevant. That's the hardest thing for developers, these days, is discovery, for sure. So we're all just looking for ways, to pull about, in the games, because, you can only get featured, every so often, if at all, on an app store or something like that, and take advertisements on Facebook and Instagram and all that sort of stuff, it's very expensive.
And that's the kind of topic you could do a 60-minute podcast on and not even scratch the surface of, is getting noticed. I mean, and
I don't know how to do it. I'm just, now I got a thing, and so I'm going to try some stuff.
And yeah, that's all you can really ask for. Because even from my perspective, I feel like I consider myself someone who's in the know with video games, especially retro feeling video games, and this game I never even heard of until Jason contacted me. And it's like, how do you get your name out there? Because it's a quality game. It's not like, that's the problem, is there's so much shovelware that's rammed down everyone's throat that you almost get numb to the idea of a new game coming out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just, it must be infuriating for you.
I think there's two parts to it. Number one, build something cool, right? Build something that you believe in. This is a game that I want to play. This is a role-playing game. This has deep core, role-playing mechanics. It is not designed to be a just, throwaway, I'm clicking the button, sort of thing, or, it's a meaty game, especially by mobile. So, do that, number one. There is the other part, though, which is yes, you can build, what you believe in, and all these people that they will come, and that's true to a certain degree, maybe. But you also have to go work at putting it in front of people's eyeballs. So that's what I am now trying to learn how to do.
Well, I mean, so far so good from what I'm seeing. And when did it launch for iOS?
It launched 1 week ago, last Thursday.
Last Thursday.
For just about 1 week exactly.
Awesome. Okay. What are, from your perspective, what are some of your favorite parts about the game?
At its core, it's a Diablo kind of style, rogue style dungeon crawler, right? But what I like the core of the game to me is about this, right? It is about that incremental, I'm killing an enemy, like, oh, is it going to drop that next thing that's better, than what I'm currently using? Is it a better shield, a better sword, a better helmet, whatever it is? And that's what keeps me, but I am sort of most proud about what people notice immediately when they start playing the game the first time, is the sort of visual, like, line of sight sort of effect that goes on in the game. Because I wanted to do something in tiles because it's easier for a mobile developer. It's less memory. I can make more worlds with it. It's less art intensive, but it looks really old school, right? I just had this idea that the tiles should like float up and down, and it gave it a little bit of a more modern and elevated look. Once I spent a lot of time on that, so it's like the tiles just don't float up and down as you walk around. Like, they're tied to light sources, and so like as a light source on the edge of the screen comes up, it reveals the tiles around it, which reveals tiles around it. So I spent a long time trying to tune, the speeds at which those go and like how it all flows together and looks, and it's the thing people most notice when they play the game for the first time.
Absolutely.
I started the game at PAX last year, like people they just sort of like that. So I'm really proud of that, and I think that's a really cool effect. But it is just an effect, So it's not some brand new game concept. I'm not reinventing the genre of roguelikes or dungeon crawlers. Like, I'm just trying to make a really nice, polished, turn-based experience, on a mobile device, especially that people can enjoy just easy and quickly.
Awesome. It kind of, and to that effect, it kind of, now that you bring that up, reminds me of Bastion in a way. Have you ever played Bastion?
Yeah. Bastion's a great game.
Amazing game, yeah.
Bastion, like, they had this cool narrator, right? It's super great. But the visual effect are like all the tiles, they sort of float up.
Yeah.
And it's great because in that game, like, it's building the world as you go through. And that's sort of also what it looks like in my game. It goes a step beyond that. It's not just the revealing effect, like, it is truly your line of sight, so in Rogue Wizards, the tiles also fall away, which sort of changes the nature of, like, really what the system is. It's not just presentation. It really actually does affect the gameplay. If you walk around that corner, those tiles will fall away. You can't see that monster, or you can attack them, you can't shoot them, so you don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It does matter. It matters a little more, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think it works really well. It's kind of like, it's more immersive because it makes you feel like you're actually in a dungeon because you can't really see too far ahead of you or behind you because it's, not as well lit or something. That's at least my mentality when playing it.
Yeah, no, it was, I like it. It took a while to develop and to put all the color lighting in there and stuff that makes it feel really, dark and moody and all that. That's all custom code, none of that is written by, the game engine or the hardware. Like, it's all software-driven lighting to make it work there.
It works really well. It's good too because it's a pretty big mechanic in the game, so I should hope it works well.
Yeah, no, it's the signature thing. Like, after people have played this, they might not remember, this and that and the other thing. But remember, oh yeah, there was that game with the tiles flew around in the sky.
And a little bit off topic, but just kind of for the audience that cares about getting into the game industry, what got you interested in becoming a dev in the first place?
That's a good question. I've always played games, of course, right? And I am not sure what that moment was where I decided that, like, oh, programming would be a good thing to do now as an extension of that. I mean, I guess there's part of me that's always liked to be, like, a builder, to create something like that. For people who are out there who have this natural sort of desire to create, like, building, software is definitely one of those avenues, which is super cool. It's pretty technical. It took me a long time, like, just learning programming in order to then be able to do something on top of that, such as building, entertainment software, right? But just like anything, you have to start somewhere at the beginning. Whether you're doing programming or art or design, these are the big three pillars, like in the game industry. Start with something small, right? Like, and sort of build it up from there. And you just got to keep at it. You just got to keep, practicing. Like artists, like, they build their portfolios, they draw, they keep drawing, they keep modeling, they keep texturing, like keep animating, whatever that is.
And hopefully keep improving.
Everything is improvement, right?
Yep.
But it's also important to try to finish things too. We all have a lot of projects that we started,
Yeah.
finished. So it's like, finish that thing, whatever it is. My advice for people who maybe want to get into the industry is really programmer centric, because that's the sort of track that I have taken. Is what I know the most. We talked about this a little bit, but it's like, if you want to code in the game industry, you should definitely go to school, learn computer science, like that's all really great. On the side, you also work on your own project, make your own little video game. When you are ready to go get a job, you show that to prospective employers. Like, that is how I got into the industry. And if somebody comes to me when I've been working at companies and they show me their own game that they've been working on, like, that speaks just so much more volume to me than any degree ever does.
Well, it reminds me of I don't remember where I heard the quote, but it was something along the lines of there's too many. Don't come to me with an idea of a game, because there's too many ideas for games. Come to me with how you want to implement it and how you're going to go about it, because that's where the actual
execution is what matters. I'd be great. I would love to just dream and feel all day. That sounds awesome. But we need to make things. At the end of the day, like, execution is what matters for this stuff, right?
Do you have a favorite moment from your career that kind of stands out? Besides, quitting and starting your own company.
That's a pretty good one. Actually, I really, there's a couple of moments I really like. Certainly starting out with Nox, when Nox shipped, like, that was special to me, because it was the sort of first game that I had worked on, right? So now I felt like, I was part of the industry who is now, making stuff for, for other people to see. But I think what has really meant more for me was working at Gazillion, being the lead programmer, like, from inception to launch. Like, it was, there was nobody on the team, and there was like person number 3 or something like that, right? So being able to sit down and evaluate, like, what kind of client, engine technologies we wanted to use, and make recommendations for that, and select which kind of technology was correct, for the project, for the whole team, as well as, like, design, like, how those things are going to interact with our own server, and then architecting that. That's, like, kind of the whole piece for me. So I'm really proud of being able to be on that project, like, from nothing to, fully functional MMO. That was pretty special. I don't know if I'll get another opportunity to do that in my career.
And how long from start to finish did that process take?
It was about 4 years. It was just under 4 years. I didn't do it alone. There was a lot of people in the team, doing a whole bunch of different parts, but it was special for me to have influence over a whole bunch of that, like, and that was really cool.
And that kind of brings me to my next question. For Rogue Wizards, did you do that alone, or if you had help, how much help did you have? How many people worked on it?
So I did. I am the only dev on this, but I didn't necessarily do it alone. But I do all of the programming. I have done a bunch of the design, so all the design, and all of the business aspects. Like putting the company together, making the LLC, like making the website. Like, I do all of that sort of stuff. For the very first portion of this project, I also drew all of the art, which is not what you see in the game now, because my art's not going to win awards, and sought some help. So at the end of 2014, I, using my own savings, like, I hired an artist and an animator to build the dungeon artwork and to animate, like, 5 or 6 creatures, and did a Kickstarter with that. And so the idea was that Kickstarter was for $70,000, and which I met, which was really cool. And I've used that money the entire following year to fund the rest of the art and the rest of the animation.
Wow.
And then contract out for, I had some music tracks made and that sort of stuff. So that is really how it happened. I have 2 artists. There's Alex Madrigal, who drew a lot of the 2D artwork, and Aiden Scott, who did all the animation, and Phil Shank, who did the rest of the artwork, mainly in the town and some of the other creatures. Claire Etzer has helped me out with some of the design, some of the tests of all that, and my friend S.J. Divya has written the story. So I've reached out to everybody that I could to just give me a little help who are interested in doing it, and then contracted out with the art for the rest. But I do the rest of it. And because I'm one of those people who has a skill set that crosses all of that stuff, and so it's pretty lucky that way.
Yeah, it is. That's awesome. Let's talk about the future. Future plans for Spellbind Studios. Can you give people a glimpse as to what you're thinking about doing moving forward, whether it's obviously Rogue Wizards and making sure you provide updates to put characters in, and then what you're kind of thinking next?
Yeah, so the game is out there on, it's been out on Steam since the end of last year, and it was just released on iOS last week. So I would like to also get it on Android. So that'll be one of the things that I look at next. But I'm also taking everything that I've built since last year when I released it on desktop and made it ready for mobile, which includes some of these, like, you can go into town, there are 4 new areas of endless gauntlet dungeons, I call them. They all have hard scoreboards. I introduced like a revive potion that can bring you back from death. So there's a lot of enhancements that have gone into the mobile version. We're releasing that to the PC and Mac people. In fact, today I will push the button and that stuff will go out. So, but more long term, like, we'll see, like, if Rogue Wizards generates enough money off of all of these platforms that I will release it on, then I want to do another game. So we'll see. And hopefully a bigger, more complicated one. Like, that would be kind of cool. I'd like to have, somebody partner with me and like be on staff like the whole time instead of having to contract for art. It'd be really great to partner with at least a visual artist to really, make the next project. If it doesn't do that well, then I'm gonna go get a job again.
Well, that's kind of the good thing about doing this on your own is, if nothing else, that's a hell of a way to build your portfolio. I mean,
it's win-win for me, right? So it took a bunch of time mainly and opportunity cost of not bringing in a paycheck, from a job for these past couple of years. But I haven't spent all that much of my own money on it. The Kickstarter really, allowed me to do this without spending that and draining more. So I'm really just spending money in order to, pay my mortgage and stuff, right? But yeah, if none of it works and it doesn't make any money and like whatever, like, I've actually still spent all of these years working on something relevant for my career that I take to my next employer that's like, hey, now I've done this whole thing from start to finish, like, on all aspects of the company. And like, that speaks volumes too. So hopefully, wherever I land next will be fun and cool, and they can learn, from some of the things that I've learned over the past, couple of years here. But that, I can learn, from whatever it is that they're doing too. Like, I think I want to get into more. Like, I've been building PC games almost my entire until now. This is the first thing that has not been on a desktop, and I really like just doing stuff in mobile, like on an iPad is really fun to play, and I think I would like to do more. I think there's a lot of cool creative space to play in there, so I might look that direction, but we'll see.
How about just from a business perspective of getting your name out there first for Spellbind Studios and for getting into an area without that much competition? Had you looked into, like, it's mobile, so the Nintendo Switch and getting it on the eShop, or is that kind of not on your radar?
We'll see what how well it does, like how much money it generates. So I don't really have the resources to port it over to console and do all that sort of stuff. So I've achieved some success on the platforms before. That said, like, I'll probably, no matter what I do, on the side look at some of those little experiments to see, like, oh, hey, how hard is it? Maybe it's a lot easier than I think. But the consoles in particular are difficult for this game because it was never really designed to be used with a controller, and that has some. I think it is possible to create a user interface, with a controller that will make it work, but I think it will be challenging.
Yeah.
I want to do something that doesn't, work really, really well, right? I don't want to shoehorn something in there because that'll just be a waste of time. But yeah, so I haven't thought about it deeply enough, but looking.
I always wondered about that with the eShop and the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live. Like, how a developer, first of all, decides to port their game to it, how they go about it, what the costs involved are, like what. I mean, porting it over, assuming that's seamless and easy, what other hurdles do you run into besides porting it over? Do you have to get approval from Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, or do you just pay money? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have not done console development before, so I'm not totally sure, but I know that it has radically changed in the past couple of years. You know, you used to have to get these dev kits from Sony and Microsoft, and they were like, $10,000, like a special version of the PlayStation that would sit on your desk. Like, it was something that was not achievable for, indies at home.
Right.
That has totally changed. Like, there is a lot of development now. Indies can go put stuff on Microsoft and the PlayStation Store. I still think they have to approve it. You just can't release it like without approval. It's not the total Wild West. But I could go get something on there, I think, without a problem. Pretty encouraging, and the more people who can make games, more independent developers, bigger, smaller, whatever, that can get stuff out there on all these different platforms, consoles, Apple, Android, Nintendo, Sony, everyone, like, it's just better for the industry. So it seems to be moving that direction. It used to be much more locked down, and now it really is kind of open to everything.
Right. Well, I feel like a few years ago, it was Microsoft kind of opened the floodgates with the indie market. Then Sony quickly followed, and then Nintendo was a little bit behind, like they normally are with that whole acceptance process. But like you said, they are a lot more inviting to it right now. And I'm just thinking, like, because there's so much competition on the iOS App Store, on Steam, there's a gazillion games that come out every day. And on a new system like the Switch, like I have the Switch, and I'm looking through on the eShop, and I'm like, there's a bunch of Neo Geo ports and some games that I would have never heard of if they weren't on the Switch, because it's such a limited library right now that it's almost an opportunity to get noticed.
Yeah, well, the Switch is brand new, so anytime any new thing comes out, like, that is a great opportunity for developers to get on board because there is such a small library. So I'll look into it. It would certainly be a lot of fun.
And a lot of work, which is something that you've been used to.
Like, it used to be a lot harder. I use the game engine Unity to build Rogue Wizard, and that's the most popular game engine on the planet at this point. More people are building stuff than anything else. And it allows you to go to multiple platforms quite easily. It is literally a push of a button, to export something for Windows and Mac here, and that is unheard of, 20 years ago.
Right.
That did not happen. So, like, this adding time, like, for people who can who have the resources and can put a project together, like, you can take that project on a lot of different platforms, which is a wider audience. Like, it's great. Like, I've never seen anything like it, and it's nothing but good.
That's a great point, because I remember, like, back in Super Nintendo, there was like Aladdin. There was like, which one's better, the Genesis or the Super Nintendo version, or Boogerman, or Mortal Kombat. They built them from the ground up, like, for each system.
You have to worry about all sorts of crazy technical things that nobody even thinks about.
That's wild.
Part of most people's developer day when they do this anymore, which is great.
That is, yeah, that is. Cool. Well, I feel like that's kind of everything. I don't know if you have anything you want to say to people watching, or anything to add to the conversation.
Yeah, well, I encourage people to go check out the game, of course. Tell your friends and try it out. It's free on iOS, right? So you can just download it and check it out. Cool little dungeon crawler. But also, like, for those who are interested in, being a part of, building games, there's room for a whole lot more independent development in this industry, and check out some of the game engines out there and get building.
That's awesome. Colin, I can't thank you enough for this, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this video, put it on my channel. I'm probably going to have, in the background, I'm going to be playing the game so people see what it's like as we're talking. And if possible, I also want to do a follow-up on this game personally, and actually talk about it more specifically, so that people get a better idea of what to expect from it. And I think they're going to really love it. So great job, man.
Yeah, well, feel free to contact me if you have any more questions, want me to do other stuff. Like, I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Colin. Really appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it too. Thank you.
Definitely. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching the interview with Colin Day of Spellbind Studios. I hope you guys learned something about the development process in the video game world. If you haven't already, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.